Hi, it is Eating Disorder Awareness Week. We are close to wrapping up the week. And before I get into today, we're going to be talking about binge eating disorder. I've been doing education videos all week on different eating disorders, feeding eating disorders. I do want to mention it's posted in my Intuitive Eating Free Education Facebook group and on my Counseling with Sarah Nielsen page on Facebook. Don't forget, Nita's got some free groups going this weekend, and I posted the links. You could sign up for them, okay? They're groups for a person who is dealing with an eating disorder, disordered eating, as well as loved ones, family members, okay? Okay, let's get into binge eating disorder today and do a little bit of education on it. I've got my trusty DSM, and I'm going to have to put my glasses on. So again, this is not to diagnose yourself. That's not the purpose. It's just to provide some education, signs and symptoms. I'm going to do an overview, not full logistic, particular criteria. And if you think that you have an issue, don't self-diagnose. Go see a professional. Seek help. Seek support. I know there's a lot of guilt and shame that comes along with eating disorders, but it's okay to seek help, okay? All right, binge eating disorder. Let's take a look at it. So this is the first section, recurrent episodes of binge eating. So let's talk about what binge eating is. It is eating in a discrete period of time, for example, an hour, 2 hours. We get the idea. An amount of food that is most definitely larger than what the average person would eat in that same time frame. Okay? There is a sense of lack of control over eating during that episode. So you feel like you can't stop, you can't control what, how much, maybe even the pace. Okay. Binge eating is also associated with some of these things. Eating, some of them I've already said, but eating much more rapidly than normal, so very fast eating. Sometimes that may be because you're like trying to sneak it, hide it. Sometimes I think that's driven by guilt and shame, just like the faster it gets down and goes away. It just feels like is driven by that. And it can be punishment oriented too. Eating until you're uncomfortably full, eating large amounts when you're not even physically hungry, eating alone because you're embarrassed about how much you're eating. Feeling disgusted with yourself, depressed, or very guilty afterwards. And there's a lot of distress with the binge eating. And I'll just go over a couple other things. One thing that's important with binge eating disorder is to know there are many people who are of average weight when they have binge eating disorder. It doesn't mean you can be overweight, but it doesn't mean you have to be overweight. I think that's a myth. Okay. The other thing is there is, with binge eating, I mentioned it, but very much a loss of control. Okay. It's common for it to come on in adolescence and college age, but it certainly can come on later. Dieting, restricting, compensating in some way often follows binge eating. And the other thing that I think is really interesting, and I'm going to end on this note, is I just did a training yesterday because Nita has been offering all these trainings this week, National Eating Disorder Association, of the high co-occurrence of trauma in binge eating. So that I think is a very interesting statistic, if you will, or commonality. And trauma doesn't have to be food trauma to result in an eating disorder, some sort of trauma. And as I've discussed in other videos, a lot of people with eating disorders do have trauma. There's a very high correlation. It doesn't mean just because you have trauma that you will have an eating disorder. But often people with eating disorders do have trauma. And I think that's where that control aspect comes in. They lost control at some point in their life, childhood, maybe something happened in adulthood, and they are seeking control. So I've got some other good videos planned. You can come join my group, Intuitive Eating Free Education. You can follow me on Counseling with Sarah Nielsen. Instagram is July Moon, and YouTube is Tales of a Psychotherapist. Thank you so much.